and welcome to All-Star Wrestling. Vince McMahon here at ringside, along with wrestling's living legend, Bruno Sammartino, where this week, Bruno, will take a look at popular Frenchman Rene Goulet meeting individual competition.
Well, as I said before, Vince, Goulet's been around a long time. He's been against the best, and I don't know who he's going to face, but whoever it is, they'll be in for a tough battle because this guy's good.
We'll also see in a non-title match the champions, tag team-wise, Tito Santana and Ivan Putski.
Well, those two guys, everybody's thrilled always to see them because they're just fantastic individual competition and tag team, and I'm looking forward to it myself, Vince.
Larry Sharp will join us here, along with meeting individual competition, Mr. USA, it's Tony Atlas.
Well, Tony Atlas is a great athlete, got a phenomenal body, and everybody likes him, and they should because he's a great guy.
Also scheduled to join us, Larry Zbyszko, who last week was almost booed out of this arena.
He may have been booed out of this arena, Vince, but no way are the fans as bitter about Zbyszko as I am. I gave it a lot of thought about everything that happened, and today I know what Zbyszko's all about, and my only wish and hope is that I will get a chance to do something to Larry Zbyszko.
We will look forward to your comments during the Larry Zbyszko match. We shall return, ladies and gentlemen, with our opening contest as All-Star Wrestling continues in just a moment. Following wrestling exhibition requires discretionary viewer participation.
Ladies and gentlemen, this is All-Star Wrestling promoted by Phil Zatko, supervised by the State Athletic Commission and the officials assigned. Deputy Commissioner in charge, John Santoro, the doctor in attendance at ringside, Dr. George Soharian, the timekeeper at the bell, Mike Mittman, and the referees for this hour of wrestling, Dick Worthy, Billy Caputo, and my name is Joe McHugh. The opening contest, it is scheduled for one fall with a 10-minute time limit. Here in the corner to my left, from Powers, France, weighing 245 pounds, it is Rene Goulet. And his opponent in the corner to my right, from Jersey City, New Jersey, weighing 210 pounds, it is Manny Sayaka.
Here we go. Manny Sayaka against Rene Goulet. Nice maneuver by Mr. Sayaka. Rather unusual tights Mr. Sayaka is wearing, Bruno.
To say the least, I'm not too familiar with Mr. Sayaka, Vince. Is he, where's he from, you know?
I know very little about the man. I believe he was on All-Star Wrestling about, I don't know, several months ago. Only for one appearance, but now he decided to make his entry again in the World Wrestling Federation. Built with a low center of gravity. Goulet takes him over the hip. Short arm scissor now.
You know, you take this guy Cienka. He's, as you said, you know, he's not very tall. And he's very stocky. And, you know, a guy like Goulet, who's much taller, You'd be surprised how difficult it makes as he hip tossed him. Goulet hip tossed Sinaka. It was difficult because when you're that short and stocky like that, you really have to bring him way further down from the ground and over and to take him over. Whereas a taller fella, you can shoot your hip right in this midsection and just, you know, with that kind of balance and so forth and leverage, you can take him right over. So, you know, a shorter guy like this sometimes can provide you with a bigger problem than a man your own size.
Siaka back to his feet. Siaka seems to be having problems with his footing. Seems to be slipping about the ring. Here Siaka trying to stay down low. And Goulet with a forearm smash there to the back with a front face lock. Breaks him down. Goulet, the veteran, he's been around. Knows a lot of the ins and outs.
As we could see a while ago, looking at the shoes of Sinaka, he's got those leather shoes, leather bottoms, and those leather bottoms will be slippery in that mat. That's why a lot of the guys have learned that they get it soled with the rubber. Rubber will stick better on the mat than a sole leather will.
Interesting point that obviously something very simple like that can make one whale of a difference in a match.
Absolutely, because you're bracing yourself, trying to apply a force in a hold or a quick move, and the foot can just slip from underneath you and down you go. So to me, that's extremely important. I always make sure my shoes, I test them always, as most all wrestlers do, to make sure that you got a good grip on that mat.
Goulet with an attempt at a pin, sort of half-hearted. I'm surprised Goulet would attempt to pin a man in this fashion, Bruno.
It's very difficult to do, and I'm surprised
just
too.
toying around with him, you think, or what?
Well, I don't know. Goulet usually is the type of person who likes to toy around with anybody. You know, he takes every bout seriously, and he goes for no nonsense. But I just didn't understand that unless he was trying to lead up to something else. There was a clever move that dropped the hold. He really did it with nice style.
And again, pretty tough to affect, given the physical stature of his opponent. That short, stocky leg.
Yeah, and again, you know, maybe Goulet felt that, you know, that he might be able to get a pin in that way, because maybe, I don't know the Sinaka too well. I'm not familiar with it, but maybe he didn't have that much respect for his strength, so he probably tried that, but he found out that maybe he's stronger than he might have thought he was.
An escape a moment ago by Siaka. Goulet very quickly behind him. Could have done something there, chose not to.
Right, well, that's Goulet. He's a gentleman, you know, he's not going to take advantage at all times. And here he goes again with that drop toe hold.
Goulet applying a lot of pressure there, Bruno.
Now that could be a submission. I mean, you know, I'm sure if he chose to do that once or twice more, I'm sure that the Sinaka would probably submit. But looks like he escaped it instead.
Either that, or I think maybe Goulet sort of wanted to change his hold or something.
Yeah, I was just going to say, did he escape or did he let him go? I missed that. I see what I mean, Vince. He went to throw a punch or a forearm blow at Goulet, and as he was pushing against Goulet with his left arm, his foot just slid from underneath him.
Goulet breaking his man down. Whoa, look at that. Nicely executed suplex, too, and it's over. So.
Beautiful suplex, Vince.
So Rene Goulet chalks up another victory for himself. The popular Frenchman. Let's get the official time.
It is a time, 5 minutes and 52 seconds. The winner, Rene Goulet.
Goulet chalks up a victory, and Bruno, let's take a little closer look at, all right, here we go.
Well, here we go. It's Goulet positions this man, hooks him around the midsection, takes him up, and beautifully. He did it with ease, too. Beautiful suplex.
Back to live action. Goulet attempting to shake the hand of his opponent, Siaka, who was bested unquestionably here on All-Star Wrestling. We shall return in a moment.
Ladies and gentlemen, the next contest It is set for one fall with a 10-minute time limit. Here in the corner to my right from Paulsboro, New Jersey, weighing 258 pounds, it is Larry Sharp. And his opponent in the corner to my left from Hollywood, California, weighing 240 pounds, it is Bill Berger.
Bill Berger against Larry Sharp. The bell is rung and we're set for the action to begin. Sharp ramming his knee into the back a moment ago of Bill Berger from Hollywood, California. Waiting in the wings, ladies and gentlemen, will be Larry Zbyszko meeting individual competition. As we said at the outset, we'll also see in a tag team match the champions Santana and Putski, along with Mr. USA, Tony Atlas. Somewhat of an application of a submission hold here, Bruno.
Yes, it is. They used to call this the bow and arrow because it's very similar applied, and it's it could be a submission hold. I guess Sharp just didn't apply enough pressure because Berger did not give up.
Bill Berger whipped to the rope, set it off, back body drop. Berger scooped by Sharp. Power slam. And Berger kicking out of it.
That was a surprise, Vince. Usually a power slam like that usually means that's it. Usually means a pin. I was surprised to see Berger been able to kick out of it.
Sharp really didn't have him much in the way of a pin coming. Elbow finds a mark there.
Well, I think that Sharp has been on Berger now from the very beginning, really, and I think he's taken so much out of him that even though shockingly, really, I was shocked that he was able to escape that power slam, but he just hasn't really had much left to try to make an effort in trying to stop Sharp. And right now, Sharp has got him by the trapezius muscle, which ordinarily will not really do that much damage. Now, unless your hands are so strong that you can dig into the nerve, to the nerves inside the muscles, and then it could be painful. But I think the problem here is that Berger is just run out of steam. He's been taking a pretty good shellacking, and he's just done.
What did we mention earlier? The fact that we're going to see Tony Atlas later on, and I think it's certainly noteworthy that Tony Atlas is going to make a concerted effort to appear in the World Wrestling Federation more often than he has. Here's a man with a tremendous, a very rigorous schedule. His talents take him all over the wrestling world. But I'm happy to say it appears as though we're going to have Tony Atlas more often, and to see this young man in action is really a treat. Wouldn't you agree?
That's super news, and I'm sure other fans got to be delighted to hear that, because Tony Atlas is not only a super wrestler, just a great wrestler, but he looks so phenomenal. This guy's one of the top physique stars in the world today, and he's such a likable guy that I just think that the fans are in for a real treat if they're going to have the opportunity to see more of Tony Atlas.
2, and well, Mr. Sharp could have had the count on 3.
Well, again, Vince, you know, this Berger, he is so out of it that Sharp right now is just torturing him and having fun with him, I guess, sick fun. But Berger just doesn't seem at all to be able to defend himself at all. And frankly, I don't know. I don't know if the referee maybe should just stop this bout.
It's a good idea. Sharp with the elbow into the sternum area. Thus far, we have not seen Mr. Sharp meet much in the way of competitors here on All-Star Wrestling. But those whom he has met, certainly he's put him down very easily. And it looks like Mr. Berger is going to be another one on the list if this continues. Sharp missing now. Sharp took too much time measuring his man. Berger now with a couple of kicks. Sharp whip to the buckle. Berger moving in with a forearm. Now he yanks him by the wrist. Right back out. Sharp runs into the knee.
Can't believe that Berger came to life as he did, because he really was out of it. And all of a sudden, I don't know if he got a second win or what, but he was able to make a little wee bit of a comeback on Sharp, but nice on the receiving end again, and perhaps Sharp will end it now and get the next match in there.
And suplex in control, Larry Sharp. Foul driver, cover. It's over. I wonder if Bill Berger's all right as a result of that pile driver, Bruno.
Very dangerous maneuver.
And the time, 6 minutes and 35 seconds. The winner, Larry Sharp.
Larry Sharp victorious. Let's take a little closer look at the pile driver, Bruno.
Well, here it comes. As we see, you know, here's Berger's head, right, stick right between his legs. When he hits, look at that. Here comes the head right down on the mat. This is extremely, extremely dangerous.
That move unquestionably could snap a neck in a second. We shall return with a most interesting interview, ladies and gentlemen. Stay with us. With us at the moment, ladies and gentlemen, to my right, Ivan Putski. To my left, of course, Tito Santana, the tag team champions. You fellas, I have to hand it to you. I've just done a superb job in the World Wrestling Federation. There were many who thought that you deserved a title opportunity when you won the championship, but some thought that you wouldn't hang on to it as long as you have. Ivan, what do you credit your longevity thus far as champions with?
Well, there are several things, Vince, but, you know, the main thing, you know, like I said, our search has been, you know, every year, high and low for a partner. I'll give half of the credit to Tito Santana, the partner that I found finally, and that I put my trust in him, my full-hearted trust in Tito Santana. And the other half is we got that determination that a lot of people don't have, you know. You know, you can be big, you can be strong, and you can be a good wrestler, but like in any professional sport, if you don't have the guts, you shouldn't be in that ring.
You fellows unquestionably, in those categories just mentioned by Ivan, excel. Seems to me that you excel not only, however, in tag team fashion, but both you and Ivan Tito make a point to take on individual competition to keep yourselves individually razor sharp.
That's right, Vince. In order to be a champion, you got to get more and more experience. Experience is good whether you're wrestling single or tag team events. And no matter what we're doing, if either Ivan is in the ring or me in the ring, whether single or tag matches, we're watching each other for mistakes and for the things we're doing right, and he tells me and I tell him what we're doing right and what we're doing wrong. And that's one of the main things that I think that we're going to keep on doing to keep on top.
Seems to me, Ivan, that one of the things that you and Tito do so well is your styles complement one another. We'll see you and Tito tag off many times when when actually you would have the advantage, as opposed to most tag team combinations. They'll tag out when one individual is in trouble. But you tag out many times when you're not in trouble, because you know full well that the opponent you'd be wrestling could fall to the likes of the skill or a flying whatever it may be from Tito Santana. Likewise, he knows you do things very, very well. So you tag out not only when you're in trouble, but when you're not in trouble.
That's right. This is the thing that we stress to each other, Vinny, that, you know, a lot of the tag teams that stay in there, they get wore down, and then boom, the other guy comes in and has advantage. But we get in there maybe 1 minute, we're fresh, the other guy's fresh. Even when we're not in trouble, we tag out just to keep that momentum, just to keep that fluid drive, the machine. See, we want to operate like a machine. We don't want to be like any other tag team that's been here. We're different, and this is the way we present ourselves. We're something special, and we're proud of the way we fight in that ring, and this is the way we're going to fight from now on, and we're going to hold on to those belts. And I'll tell you what, with the guts and the determination that I found in my partner and that I have, they're going to have to kill us in that ring to get the belt, because they're not going to pin us.
Well, unquestionably, you fellas work very, very hard at maintaining your hold on the tag team championship. Nothing comes easy. As a matter of fact, Tito, the longer you hold the belt, I would think it would be the harder it is to hold it.
It sure is, Vince. Every day that goes by, it gets tougher and tougher. What the people may not know, all the running and all the weightlifting me and Putski have been doing in the last few months, we spend a lot of time watching films, watching our opponents. We study. When we go in the ring, we have 2 or 3 different things that we, you know, we're going to do in the ring. We, you know, something might not be able to go, we got to substitute. And we're just working like a clock, and that's one of the most important things that we've put together, and nobody can take that away from us, I guarantee you.
Well, Ivan, to have a backup strategy, maybe even a backup to the backup is important, isn't it?
Well, the only backup strategy that I think is the most important, knowing that I know that Tito's right behind my back. I know that I can turn my back because I know this man is watching me, and he can rest assured that I'll be watching him. You see, we've installed the trust in each other, and this is something that, you know, is very hard to find, but once you get this combination, it sticks with you, and that's why we're so victorious.
You fellas,
It takes a combination, Vinny.
I'm sure it does. I would imagine that not only have you become great tag team partners, but I would suspect, Tito, you become great friends as well.
We sure have, and I want to thank all the people, all the fans from World Wrestling Federation, because they have given us 110 support, and that's what keeps us going.
All right, we'd like to wish you the very best of luck in the future, Ivan.
Thank you very much, Vince.
Same to you, Tito. We'll see more of Tito Santana and Ivan Putski unquestionably in the weeks to come. We will certainly wish them well in their tenure as the tag team champions of the World Wrestling Federation, and we shall return with more wrestling action in a moment.
Ladies and gentlemen, the next contest is scheduled for one fall with a 10-minute time limit. Introducing it in the corner to my left from Fort Lauderdale, Florida, weighing 241 pounds, it is John Buford. And his opponent in the corner to my right from Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania, weighing 231 pounds, Larry Zbyszko.
Oh, cool it. Okay, let's keep it down. One thing straight, Jim. I am not from Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania anymore. I'm not going to live in the same boring town that San Martino comes from, and where I live is nobody's business.
My goodness, the comments of Larry Zbyszko. Zbyszko locking up with Buford. Larry Zbyszko completely, Bruno, divorcing himself of even the city that both you and he hail from, Pittsburgh. He wants absolutely nothing to do with you. There's no question about that at all.
Well, I want to tell you something, Vince. After the incident with he and I was still very brokenhearted. I still felt very sad, unhappy. I was miserable. But I'll tell you something, Vince. I've given a lot of thought. I've really studied the situation over. And I'll tell you, I don't feel that way anymore. As far as I'm concerned, Zbyszko thinks he took advantage of a situation. He thinks that this is the quick way to climb on top of a mountain. But I'm going to tell you something, Vince. He's shown his colors, and if anything, I have no more tears, no more sadness. All I have is bitterness toward this guy. That's all I have toward him is bitterness.
That unquestionably, however, is exactly what Larry Zbyszko has for you. That's exactly the term that would best describe Larry Zbyszko. Wait a minute. Zbyszko apparently objecting not to Buford, but apparently objecting to this capacity crowd's remarks. They were chanting, "We want Bruno." As we were saying, Bruno, in a word that would unquestionably categorize Larry Zbyszko, he is bitter.
Yeah, he's bitter, but the thing is, what the heck is he bitter about? There's a punk that I trained for all those years. Here's a guy who had no doors open to him only because of me and my traveling around the world that I knew promoters that I had him go to Japan, go to Australia, go to Europe, come into Madison Square Garden because of wrestling there so often knowing the promoters. Open doors to this guy that takes people many years and they never have those doors open to him. And then he's bitter. He's got a lot of gall to be bitter.
The crowd chanting again, "We want Bruno." And the louder they chant, the more angry Larry Zbyszko becomes. And the more aggressive he becomes against John Buford.
You know, Vince, here's another thing, this guy. He wanted to wrestle me on television to show the people that he was equally as good as I was or even better. And he said, I want a scientific match. I made it clear before we even went into that ring that I was not interested in beating Zbyszko. I said that I couldn't do it. So all I was going to do was try to stop him from beating me and try to outmaneuver him for my own reputation. What does he do? He claims now that he could have escaped every hold. Maybe he could have. I never said he couldn't. But he knew in advance that I was not going to hang on to any hold to try to punish him. And then what he did was, in fact, Vince, I can say it now, what happened was that he was humiliated because, in fact, I was out-wrestling him. I was outpowering him. And in desperation, he used the chair because that was the only way he felt he could salvage himself a little bit from all the embarrassment that he was being outclassed in that ring.
Zbyszko turning the tables on John Buford. A scoop, and the powerful Zbyszko slams John Buford. A snap, over goes Buford. Zbyszko maintaining his control. He lost it a couple of times throughout the match. Larry Zbyszko claims, contrary to what you say, Bruno, that you were the one who used him.
Vince, let me ask you something. Maybe I'm a little naive to this thing. How in the world did I use him? In what way? What the heck did Zbyszko do for me? How did I use him? I was on top. I was a world champion, for God's sakes, when I started training this punk. So how in the world could I have used him? Used him for what? I was already established. I was already the champion. What was I going to gain by training and helping Zbyszko become a professional wrestler? Where was I? Was I kicking back? Was he kicking back me? Was he giving me his purse? Was I asking for any nonsense like that? No way. All I saw is a young guy who had tremendous desire to be a wrestler, and I felt he had ability, and I sacrificed much and too much of my time to help him achieve that goal to come into professional wrestling because I thought he could contribute something to the game. Now he says that I used him. How in the hell in God's name did I ever use him, and for what purpose?
Zbyszko with Buford. He has him in the air. Suplex. Into a cover. He has 2 and he has 3. And there is no love in this arena for Larry Zbyszko. There is no affection at all.
Hey, you people boo a great wrestler, and that's what you get.
And the time, 6 minutes and 1 second, and the winner, Larry Zbyszko.
Zbyszko victorious. Bruno, let's take a closer look now at the suplex.
Well, here he's using the suplex of his, which I'll have to be honest, he executes and executes it well, and he wins again. What can I say?
All right, we shall return, ladies and gentlemen, as we continue with more action in a moment.
Ladies and gentlemen, the next contest is a non-title tag team match. It is scheduled for 1 fall with a 10-minute time limit. Introducing in the corner to my left from Millbrook, New York, weighing 260 pounds, here is Frank Savage. And his partner from Akron, Ohio, weighing 240 pounds, it is B.B. Coleman. And here in the corner to my right, the World Wrestling Federation's Tag Team Champions from Mexico City, weighing 235 pounds, Tito Santana. And his partner from Krakow, Poland, weighing 240 pounds, the Polish Power, Ivan Putski.
There we have the participants in the tag team match, the non-title event. Santana and Putski getting it together again against B.B. Coleman and Frank Savage, who makes his first appearance here on All-Star Wrestling. Here we go. Savage makes his way over the rope. Savage, good size, young man. Leaning on his man. Savage with a forearm smash to the chest area. Santana whipped out. No, Savage. He really hit that buckle.
Well, you know, Vince, I'm looking at this young man, the Savage, because I've never seen him before. And I was just looking to see just what he might have had here. But I can see that he's a big fella. He's very tall and must weigh about 250 or better. But I can also see that he's a little bit on the green side. I don't know how long he's been wrestling as a pro, but he's not an experienced wrestler, and that's very obvious thus far. Unless he shows us some surprises later on, which remains to be seen. Right now being caught in a hammerlock by Putski with his power, although he's just got away from it.
The right hand knocked Mr. Savage right down to the canvas. Ooh.
That hurts.
That's enough to break your arm.
It sure is.
Good way to break a shoulder. Savage tags out. B.B. Coleman now stepping through. Side headlock and a reversal here. Santana very, very quick when he with his execution. Oh, whip around with a yank of the hair. Very quick maneuver there on the part of Santana.
Santana's smart. Coleman wanted to have a little test his strength. Santana's strong, but that's not his specialty. His specialty is quickness, know-how. And while Coleman is extending his the clutch hands, he made a beautiful move, got behind him, took him over the corner, tagged Putski, and knife. Coleman wants to test strength. He's got the perfect man to do it with.
Does he ever, Bruno? You can hear the smack of the flesh there as the forearm struck. Putski going to work there on Frank Savage. So now Coleman nowhere near his corner. Far, far away from tagging his partner.
Hey, baby, don't hit him so hard. One more time. Put your arms down, you dummy.
Santana now with a knee in the... That must be a very painful hold, Bruno.
Well, it is, because as we see, he's got his hands, Santana has hands on Coleman's chin, and he's got the knee right at the bottom of the neck of Coleman. He's pulling back, and that's really stretching that neck, and it is most painful. So painful that he's saying, let me out of here. Let me get this Savage in here. Savage may be his name, but so far he hasn't shown that that's his game. Has it, Vince?
Quick go behind there by Santana. Sit out. Poorly executed. Turning into his man there. Another sloppy sit out and over to the ropes.
He did a straight out sit out. You know, ordinarily on a quick side, you have to be quick and you have to either go to your right or to your left. He just went straight, and doing that, of course, you're going to wind up nowhere with your opponent staying right behind you.
Savage working on the leg of Santana. Savage brings Mr. Santana out to the middle. Ooh, my. Has it against the rope. And there's a tag. Putski unloads. I tell you, that Putski, he wastes no time, man. He lets it all hang out. B.B. Coleman in trouble now. Tag was made. Coleman off the ropes. Putski gives him a shot to the midsection. Santana over. Sunset flip. 2, it's over. Let's get the official word, if we may.
It is a time, 6 minutes and 5 seconds. The winners, the World Wrestling Federation's Tag Team Champions, Tito Santana and Ivan Putski.
Let's go back and take a look at slow motion action if we have it now. Santana and Putski clearly had their way pretty much all the way through the match. But there, a very dangerous maneuver, but a very successful one, Tito Santana. And you see there where Santana is in the ring. Well, Santana leaped from the outside. You see how far away he is now from our left. Santana really went over the top rope in a very, very dangerous maneuver. Nevertheless, a successful one. So Mr. Santana and Putski certainly know what they're doing. With that in mind, let's go to Bruno Sammartino.
Ladies and gentlemen, the Worldwide Wrestling Federation Tag Team Champions, Ivan Putski and Tito Santana. We'll start with you, Ivan. You know, in recent weeks, we noticed that you and Tito taking single competition quite a bit. And I feel that I know the reason why you're doing this, but I think, you know, maybe you should explain to the fans.
Well, Bruno, you know, it's fine to work as a tag team, but, you know, you don't want to leave out the single competition as well. You know, you get used to tag teaming, you get to rely on your partner, but every now and then you got to break it off. You got to go in there with an individual. You got to know that you can stay in there by yourself and go through the length of time, you understand? You got to keep working that stamina, that endurance, because, you know, it's fine to rely on a partner like Tito, or he can rely on me, but we've got to have a single match too where we can just rely on ourselves.
Very true, and it makes a lot of sense. Now, you know, you guys have held the title for a good while now, and you've been so successful against all opponents, and you have to be congratulated with that because you're really proving yourselves to be champion. But is there any one combination that you feel you'd like to meet or that you feel might really be a tremendous challenge to you?
Bruno, as far as me and Putski is concerned, we'll take any challenges. But the #1 contenders, as far as we're concerned, and the guys that we got to prove that we can beat are the Samoans, and we're ready for those Samoans anytime they want to make a challenge. And I want to make this clear. We've been having a lot of single matches, but only because we haven't got that many challenges.
Excuse me, we're all out of time. Back to you, Vince.
Thank you.
Ladies and gentlemen, the next contest is set for one fall or two curfew. Introducing in the corner to my left from Salt Lake City, Utah, weighing 220 pounds, it is Ronnie Lee. And his opponent is just coming down the aisle from Roanoke, Virginia, weighing 250 pounds, ladies and gentlemen, Mr. USA, Tony Atlas.
I'll take a look at him. He is definitely Mr. USA, not only in terms of his physique, but in terms of just the type of gentleman he is. Here we go. Tony Atlas toying around with Lon Lee in this regard, Bruno.
Well, Lee made the ridiculous mistake of clutching hands with Atlas and going to a little power movement here, and there's no way in the world that Lee is going to compete with Atlas on his strength department. He should be concentrating and trying to perhaps a leg dive or trying to get Atlas down on the mat or trying to get behind and do something. Those moves.
Kind of like that, only a little different.
Yeah, right. I doubt if Lee could execute it quite that way.
Atlas set up so well. He's a gifted athlete, and some people would think, geez, look at this man. You know, he looks so terrific, but he must be muscle bound as such, and that is nothing could be further from the truth. He has tremendous flexibility.
Well, of course, the muscle bound stuff, that's a myth from years ago. Today, we know that most athletes, even swimmers, you know, baseball and football, wrestling, all sports, do a lot of weight training because it's very beneficial to improve an athlete's abilities. But Atlas here, I think, if anybody should even believe in that old myth, certainly by watching this man in action at ring, watching him as flexible as he is, should kind of close the doors to that old myth once and for all.
Atlas grinding it out now on Lon Lee.
All right, Ronnie, finish him off.
Have you had an occasion, Bruno, to train with Tony Atlas?
Yes, I worked out with Tony. Tony's one of these people who likes to use heavier weights, and then what he does is uses the heavy weights for power. And look at this power right here.
Wow. Look at this. Oh, my. Forget about it. Right into the ribs. The cover. We have 1, 2, and it's all over. So Tony Atlas victorious over Lon Lee, having no problem at all. And what a display of strength we saw a moment ago. Let's get the official time.
It is a time, 2 minutes and 54 seconds, and the winner, Mr. America, USA, Tony Atlas.
Tony Atlas victorious. Let's take another look at it, Bruno. There we go.
There he goes. He takes him up to his shoulders, and in a second we see him scoop him clear over his head, and then he brings him down on top of his knee, and of course that completely, I'm sure, did some rib damage to Lee, and of course knocking all the wind out of him and getting pinned.
Well, I'll tell you, there is Mr. USA Tony Atlas. We certainly look forward to Mr. Atlas returning with us next week on All-Star Wrestling. So until then, this is Vince McMahon, along with Bruno Sammartino.